Commander Tamin had been watching the same boring scanner display for 3 hours when everything changed. The coffee in his cup was still warm, and he was thinking about calling his wife back home when the alarm started screaming. "What the hell?" he muttered, nearly spilling his drink all over the control panel. The Vorthak Empire's most advanced space monitoring station had just detected something that shouldn't exist. A massive ship had appeared on their screens, right in the heart of their territory. But that was impossible. Nothing could get past their defenses, nothing. Lieutenant Sora ran over from her station, her face pale with worry. "Sir, you need to see this right now." Tamin looked at the readings and felt his stomach drop. A human battleship was sitting just 3 light hours away from their capital world. The same humans everyone laughed about, the ones they called primitive and backward. Those humans. "Run the scan again," he ordered, hoping this was some kind of mistake. "Already did, sir, 5 times, it's really there." Admiral Kyung-ho stormed into the command center, his alien features twisted with confusion and anger. "Someone explain to me how a human ship got this close to our homeworld without anyone noticing." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the answer, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. Their 17 layers of detection systems had failed completely. The same technology that could spot a small asteroid from 50 light-years away had somehow missed an entire battleship. "How long has it been there?" Kyung-ho demanded, his voice getting louder. Sora checked her instruments again, her hands shaking slightly. "We don't know, sir. It just appeared on our sensors a few minutes ago, but that doesn't mean it just arrived." The terrible truth was sinking in. The human ship could have been sitting there for days, weeks, or even months, watching them, learning about them, planning who knows what. Tamin pulled up the ship's energy readings and whistled softly. "Sir, look at these power signatures. This thing is huge, way bigger than anything we've seen from Earth before." "That's impossible," Kyung-ho snapped. "Human technology is centuries behind ours. They barely have faster-than-light travel." But the evidence was right there on the screen. The human vessel was putting out energy readings that rivaled their own capital ships, maybe even exceeded them. "Sir," Sora said quietly, "there's something else. The ship isn't trying to hide anymore. It's like they want us to see them now." The command center buzzed with nervous energy. Officers whispered to each other, trying to figure out what this meant. Some suggested it was a trap. Others wondered if the humans had allies they didn't know about. Kyung-ho stared at the display for a long moment, processing what he was seeing. The humans had somehow snuck a warship past the most advanced detection network in the galaxy. They had positioned it perfectly to threaten the Vorthak homeworld, and now they were just sitting there waiting. "Get me the fleet command," he ordered. "All available ships. Now." As alarms echoed throughout the station, one thought kept running through everyone's mind. If the humans could do this once, what else were they capable of? And more importantly, how many other human ships were out there that they still couldn't see? The galaxy suddenly felt a lot more dangerous. Captain Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the HSS Thunder, watching the alien capital world grow larger on the main screen. Behind her, the crew worked quietly at their stations, each person focused on their job. Nobody was talking much, but everyone knew they were making history. "Captain," Navigator Hyejin called softly from her position, "we've been running silent for 72 straight hours. All systems are green." Jiwoo nodded, a small smile crossing her face. While other alien races had spent centuries building faster ships and stronger shields, humans had focused on something completely different, something the galaxy had forgotten about: the art of not being seen. The Thunder looked like any other human battleship from the outside, but that was where the similarities ended. Every inch of the hull was covered in special materials that bent light and energy around the ship, like water flowing around a rock. The engines ran so quietly that even the crew sometimes forgot they were moving. "Engineering report," Jiwoo said into her communicator. Engineer Min-ho's voice crackled back from the engine room. "All fusion reactors running at whisper mode, Captain. We're putting out less energy than a small cargo ship. The alien sensors see nothing but empty space." This was the result of decades of human engineering. While aliens built bigger and louder ships, humans had learned to make their vessels invisible, not just to the eye, but to every type of scanner and detector the galaxy used. Tactical Officer Chang Min. Status on the alien detection grids. Chang Min looked up from his screens, grinning. We slipped past their outer defenses 6 hours ago, then their middle layer. Now we're inside their core systems, and they still don't know we're here. The truth was humans had been studying alien technology for years. Every time a Vorthak ship visited Earth or human space, engineers took detailed scans. They learned how alien sensors worked, what they looked for, and most importantly, what they ignored. Science Officer Sujin, are you recording everything? Every detail, Captain, Sujin replied, her fingers dancing over her console. Ship positions, patrol, routes, communication frequencies. When we get home, our intelligence people will have a complete picture of their defenses. Jiwoo walked over to the main display, where the alien capital world filled half the screen. Millions of Vorthak lived down there, going about their daily lives completely unaware that a human warship was watching them from space. You know what the best part is? Jiwoo said to her crew. They think we're primitive. They think humans are just lucky to have faster-than-light travel at all. The bridge crew chuckled softly. They'd all heard the stories. Alien diplomats talking about humans like they were children playing with dangerous toys. Trade representatives who barely hid their amusement when discussing human technology. While they were laughing at us, Jiwoo continued, we were watching them, learning from them, and building ships they can't even detect. Communications Officer Jamin looked up from his station. Captain, we're receiving their standard patrol chatter. They have no idea we're here. Some of them are actually complaining about how boring their shifts are. Let them be bored a little longer, Jiwoo said. Hyejin, take us to position 3, right where their admiral can't miss us when we decide to say hello. As the Thunder glided silently through space, invisible to the most advanced sensors in the galaxy, the crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. Soon, the Vorthak Empire would learn that humans were far from primitive. They were just getting started. 300 Vorthak warships surrounded the lone human battleship like wolves circling their prey. Admiral Kyung-ho felt confident for the first time since this nightmare began. No matter how advanced the human ship was, it couldn't fight 300 vessels at once. Open a channel, he commanded. Time to end this. His voice boomed across space with all the authority of the Vorthak. Empire behind it. Human vessel. You are trespassing in restricted space. Surrender immediately or face destruction. The bridge fell silent as they waited for the expected response. Panic, begging, maybe a desperate attempt to negotiate. Instead, what came back made everyone's blood run cold. Greetings, Admiral Kyung-ho, a calm female voice replied. I am Captain Jiwoo of the Terran Defense Force. I believe we have much to discuss. Kyung-ho's mandibles started clicking nervously. The human knew his name, his personal name, not just his rank or title, information that was supposed to be classified at the highest security levels. But Captain Jiwoo wasn't finished. Captain, Ji-hoon of the destroyer Vorth's Blade, I trust your family on the third moon is doing well. Your daughter just started military academy, didn't she? Commander Ji-hoon's face went pale. He looked around the bridge in confusion. How could a human possibly know about his family? And Commander Yunseo, the human captain continued in that same pleasant tone. Congratulations on your recent promotion to battle group leader. I heard the ceremony was quite beautiful. Yunseo nearly dropped her command tablet. The promotion ceremony had happened just 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't even public information yet. Only her immediate family and closest military colleagues knew about it. Sir, whispered Taemin to Admiral Kyung-ho, how does she know all this? The Admiral didn't answer because he didn't have an answer. Panic was starting to spread through the command structure like wildfire. Officers were looking at each other with wide eyes, wondering what else the humans knew. Captain Dongsu, Jiwoo's voice came again. I see you've modified your ship's weapon system since the Kepler incident. Impressive work. The new plasma conduits should give you 15% better efficiency. Dongsu's jaw dropped. Those modifications were experimental, installed just last month. The technical specifications were locked in the highest security databases in the Empire. Admiral Rak Jin, the human continued. Your tactical manual on fleet formations is required reading at our military academy, particularly Chapter 7 about defensive positioning. We found it quite educational. Now even the senior commanders were starting to sweat. That manual was classified beyond top secret. Only a handful of people in the entire empire had access to it. Communication Officer Jamin's voice came through clearly from the human ship. Captain, should I continue with the personnel files? We have detailed information on all 300 ship commanders currently surrounding us. The Vorthak fleet fell into stunned silence. 300 ships, hundreds of officers, thousands of classified details, and the humans knew everything. How long? Admiral Kyung-ho finally managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. How long have we been watching you? Captain Jiwoo replied. Admiral, we've been studying your empire for quite some time. Every ship that visited Earth, every communication broadcast, every piece of technology you thought was secure. We've been very good students. The terrible realization hit the Vorthak like a physical blow. While they'd been treating humans like primitive children, those same humans had been quietly infiltrating their most secure systems, learning their secrets and preparing for this moment. Now then, Jiwoo said cheerfully, shall we discuss why I'm here? Admiral Kyung-ho tried to regain control of the situation. His 300 ships still had the human vessel surrounded, and he wasn't about to let one captain make a fool of the entire Vorthak Empire. Human vessel, he commanded with all the authority he could muster. Power down your weapons immediately. You are outnumbered 300 to 1. Of course, Admiral, Captain Jiwoo replied in that same calm, pleasant voice. I'm happy to comply with your request. Kyung-ho smiled grimly. Finally, the human was showing some sense. Maybe they could end this without bloodshed after all. Though I should mention, Jiwoo continued, we've been running on minimal power this entire time. I hope you don't mind if we bring our systems up to normal operating levels first. Before anyone could ask what she meant, every sensor in the Vorthak fleet started screaming warnings. Sir, Lieutenant Sora shouted from her station, energy! Readings from the human ship are spiking. The numbers on the displays climbed higher and higher. Power signatures that had seemed impressive a moment ago suddenly looked like nothing. The Thunder's true energy output was beyond anything the Vorthak had ever recorded. That's impossible, Kyung-ho snarled, staring at readings that made no sense. Check your instruments. All instruments confirmed, sir, Sora replied, her voice shaking. The human ship is generating more power than our 3 largest dreadnoughts combined. Engineer Minho's cheerful voice crackled over the communication channel from the Thunder's engine room. All systems now at standard operational levels, Captain. Fusion reactors are purring like happy cats. We're ready for whatever comes next. The Vorthak fleet suddenly felt very, very small. What they had thought was a powerful warship at full capacity turned out to be a monster barely awake. The humans had been holding back so much power that their stealth mode was stronger than most Vorthak vessels at maximum output. Sir, whispered Commander Tae-min, if that was minimal power, what exactly are we looking at now? The answer became clear as more details flooded their senses. The Thunder wasn't just bigger than they'd thought. It was built completely differently. Where Vorthak ships focused on speed and maneuverability, the human vessel was pure, concentrated firepower. Captain Jiwoo, Admiral Kyung-ho said, trying to keep his voice steady, what exactly is your ship capable of? Well, Jiwoo replied, thoughtfully, the Thunder is what we call a battleship. It's designed to fight multiple opponents simultaneously while protecting human lives. Every system on board serves one of 2 purposes, destroying enemies or keeping my crew alive while we do it. Science Officer Su-jin's voice joined the conversation from the human ship. Admiral, if you're curious about specifications, our main guns can punch through 3 meters of standard battle armor from 200 kilometers away. Our defensive systems can track and engage over 1,000 incoming targets simultaneously. The Vorthak officers looked at each other nervously. 1,000 targets. Their largest ships could barely handle 50 incoming missiles at once. Of course, Captain Jiwoo added casually, we prefer not to fight if we can avoid it. Humans learned long ago that the best battle is the one you never have to fight. Then why are you here? Kyung-ho demanded. To have a conversation, Jiwoo replied. Though I wanted to make sure you understood exactly who you were talking to first, it's hard to have an honest discussion when one side thinks the other is primitive and helpless. The demonstration was complete, and the message was crystal clear. The humans weren't primitive. They weren't helpless. And they definitely weren't going away. Commander Velkar was having the worst day of his military career. The human ship's power readings were making his sensors go crazy. And now his admiral was expecting him to somehow intimidate a vessel that could probably turn his destroyer into space dust. His hands were sweating as he stared at his weapon controls. Maybe if he fired a warning shot, showed the humans that the Vorthak Empire meant business, they'd finally take this situation seriously. Just a small blast, he muttered to himself. Nothing too dangerous, just enough to get their attention. Without waiting for orders, Velkar pressed the firing button. A bright blue plasma bolt streaked through space toward the human battleship. The same type of shot that could pierce the armor of any Vorthak capital ship. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for decades. The Thunder's point defense systems came alive instantly. Hundreds of laser turrets swiveled with mechanical precision, tracking the incoming plasma bolt, like predators spotting prey. The entire Vorthak fleet watched in stunned silence as streams of red laser fire intercepted the attack. But they didn't just block it. They dissected it. The plasma bolt was torn apart at the molecular level, each particle separated and neutralized until nothing remained but harmless energy that dispersed into space. It was like watching a master surgeon perform an operation, except the patient was a weapon designed to destroy capital ships. Weapons Officer Dong Hyun, Captain Jiwoo's calm voice came over the communication channel. Please note that warning, shot in our logs. Standard defensive protocols engaged successfully. Dong Hyun's professional reply came back immediately. Logged, Captain. Point defense grid performed within normal parameters. No need to raise shields or take evasive action. The silence that followed was deafening. The Vorthak fleet had just witnessed their most powerful weapon being casually swatted aside like an annoying insect. The human ship hadn't even bothered to move or activate any visible defenses. Sir, Lieutenant Sora whispered to Admiral Kyung-ho, they didn't even raise their shields. I can see that, Kyung-ho replied through gritted teeth. Commander Velkar was staring at his own weapons display in disbelief. That's impossible, he mumbled. Nothing can stop a plasma bolt like that. Nothing. But the evidence was right there in front of them. The humans had technology that could take apart their attacks before they even reached the target. Worse yet, they'd done it so effortlessly that their captain was treating it like routine maintenance. Captain Jiwoo, Admiral Kyung-ho called out, trying to keep his voice steady. What exactly did you just do to our weapon? Standard point defense, Jiwoo replied matter-of-factly. The Thunder carries approximately 2,000 defensive laser systems. When something tries to hurt my ship, they respond automatically. Your plasma bolt was analyzed, tracked, and neutralized in 0.3 seconds. 2,000 defensive systems? The largest Vorthak dreadnought carried maybe 50 defensive weapons, and they considered that heavily armed. Of course, Jiwoo continued, that was just one small plasma bolt. Our systems are designed to handle much more serious threats. During our war games back home, we regularly defend against attacks from multiple battleships simultaneously. The implications hit the Vorthak like a cold wave. If humans fought practice battles against entire fleets, what did that say about their real military capabilities? Science Officer Su Jin's voice added more disturbing details. Admiral, if you're wondering about our offensive capabilities, each of our main guns generates approximately 50 times more destructive power than the shot you just fired. We carry 12 such weapons. The math was simple and terrifying. One human battleship could potentially destroy their entire fleet, and they couldn't even scratch its defenses. The balance of power had shifted completely, and everyone knew it. Captain Jiwoo could sense the confusion and fear rippling through the Vorthak fleet. These aliens had lived their entire lives believing they were the strongest force in the galaxy. Now they were discovering just how wrong they'd been. I think there's something you need to understand about humans, Jiwoo said, her voice carrying clearly across all communication channels. Communications Officer Jaemin, please transmit our species profile to the Vorthak fleet. The data package that followed painted a picture that chilled every alien who read it. While other species had Spent millennia exploring the stars and building peaceful civilizations, humanity had taken a very different path. For over 10,000 years, Jiwoo explained, humans fought each other on our homeworld. Not small disagreements or border disputes, real wars that killed millions of people. We learned to fight before we learned to fly. Admiral Kyung-ho studied the historical records with growing horror. Endless conflicts, weapons that could destroy entire cities, tactics that had been refined through centuries of actual combat. The humans hadn't just studied war, they'd lived it. Every weapon system on the Thunder, Jiwoo continued, has been tested in real battle conditions, not against practice targets or in computer simulations, against other humans who were just as smart, just as determined to survive as we were. Science. Officer Soo-jin added more disturbing details. Our defensive systems were developed during conflicts where failure meant death. Our offensive weapons were built to penetrate defenses designed by people who understood war as well as we did. Everything you see here was earned through experience. The contrast was stark and terrifying. The Vorthak Empire had enjoyed centuries of peace, with only occasional small conflicts to test their military. Their weapons were theoretical, their tactics untested against serious opposition. Admiral, Jiwoo asked directly, when was the last time your empire fought a real war? Not a police action or a border skirmish, but an actual fight for survival. The silence stretched on for long, uncomfortable seconds. Finally, Kyung-ho answered reluctantly, the Kethran Rebellion nearly 200 years ago. 200 years, Jiwoo repeated thoughtfully. We had 3 major wars in the last 50 years alone, and those were just the big ones. Engineer Minho's voice joined the conversation from the Thunder's engine room. Captain, should I mention that our fusion reactors were originally designed for military submarines? Everything on this ship comes from weapons research. The aliens were starting to understand the fundamental difference between their civilizations. The Vorthak had adapted peaceful technology for military use when needed. Humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of war, then applied that knowledge to space travel. Your ships are beautiful, Jiwoo said, almost admiringly. Fast, elegant, efficient for exploration and trade, but they were built by engineers who thought about science and discovery. Our ships were designed by people who spent their lives figuring out how to kill other people, who were trying to kill them first. Commander Taimin looked at his own vessel's schematics with new eyes. The Vorthak destroyer was sleek and sophisticated, but it was also vulnerable in ways he'd never considered. It wasn't built to fight something designed from the ground up for warfare. The difference, Captain Jiwoo concluded, is that you learned to fight when you reached the stars. We learned to fight before we left our home planet. By the time we built our first starship, we already knew exactly what we needed it to do. The history lesson was over, but its implications would haunt the Vorthak Empire for generations to come. More Vorthak ships kept arriving, filling the space around the Thunder with hundreds of additional vessels. Admiral Kyung-ho felt slightly better with reinforcements, but that feeling was about to disappear completely. Science Officer Soo-jin, Captain Jiwoo said calmly, please begin the personnel briefing. What followed was every military commander's worst nightmare. Soo-jin began, reading from detailed files about each ship captain, their crew and their personal lives. Commander Rak-min of the heavy cruiser Starpiercer, Soo-jin began in a professional tone, graduated 3rd in his class from the Naval Academy 15 years ago, married to Tel-Ana, has 2 children, Velkoth, age 12, and Jinara, age 8. Recently treated for stress-related health issues following the loss of his brother in a mining accident. Rak-min's face went pale. That information was supposed to be private, locked away in medical files that only his doctor should have access to. Captain Zorthak of the destroyer Windblade, Soo-jin continued, promoted to command after the Outer Rim incident. Known for aggressive tactics, but tends to overextend his formations when under pressure. His ship's weapon systems were upgraded last month. New plasma conduits should improve firing rate by 12%. Zorthak looked around nervously. Those weapon upgrades weren't even in the official records yet. The parts had only been installed 3 weeks ago. Admiral Kyung-ho, Soo-jin said, turning to the fleet commander himself. Your tactical manual. Advanced fleet coordination in deep space is actually taught at our military academies. Chapter 12 about defensive formations is particularly popular with our students. Kyung-ho felt his blood run cold. That manual was classified at the highest levels. Only 23 people in the entire empire had clearance to read it. But Sojin wasn't finished. She continued down the list, naming ship after ship, captain after captain. Personal details, military records, family information, even medical histories. The humans seemed to know everything about everyone. Captain Wandar of the battle cruiser Thunder's Edge. Congratulations on your recent engagement to Lieutenant Fenara from the Communications Division. The wedding is planned for next month, isn't it? Wandar's jaw dropped. He'd only proposed 2 days ago. They hadn't even told their families yet. Commander Yeltara of the scout ship. Quick strike, Sujin read on. Your daughter just started. Her first year at the Technical Institute. She's studying engineering, following in her father's footsteps. Her grades are excellent, top 5% of her class. The psychological impact was devastating. Each revelation hit like a physical blow. These weren't just random facts. They were proof that humans had been inside their most secure systems, reading their most private information, watching their most personal moments. How? Admiral Kyung-ho finally managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. Communications Officer Jae-min answered from the Thunder. Every time one of your ships visited Earth, we scanned everything. Every time you sent a message through space, we listened. Every time you updated your databases, we copied. The information, but our encryption, Commander Taemin started to protest. Was very good, Captain Jiwoo admitted. It took us almost 6 months to break your primary codes. Your secondary encryption fell in about 3 weeks. The personal files were actually the easiest. Most people use surprisingly simple passwords. The terrible truth was sinking in. While the Vorthak had been treating humans like primitive newcomers, those same humans had been systematically infiltrating every aspect of their civilization. The question, Jiwoo said quietly, is what we do with all this information. That depends entirely on how this conversation goes. The Vorthak fleet now numbered over 800 ships surrounding the lone human battleship in what should have been an overwhelming show of force. Admiral Kyung-ho had called in every available vessel within 3 star systems, hoping that sheer numbers would finally tip the balance in their favor. Captain Jiwoo watched the alien reinforcements arrive with calm interest, as if she were observing a mildly entertaining show rather than facing the largest military fleet in Vorthak history. Tactical Officer Changmin, she said in that same relaxed tone that had been driving the aliens crazy for hours, I think it's time for our friends to understand the full situation. Please activate the fleet beacons. Changmin's fingers danced across his control panel. Fleet beacons activated, Captain. All units responding. Across Vorthak space, something impossible began happening. Human ships that had been invisible to every sensor, every scanner, every detection system the Empire possessed, suddenly appeared on screens throughout the fleet. One by one, energy signatures materialized near critical installations. A human battleship sitting next to their primary shipyard, another positioned near their military academy, a third hovering over their main research facility. Sir, Lieutenant Sora's voice cracked as she read the readings, I'm showing 46 additional human vessels. They're everywhere. The locations were chosen with surgical precision. Every major military base, every important government facility, every strategic resource point in the Empire now had a human warship watching over it. Ships that had been there for who knows how long, invisible and waiting. The Thunder is one of 47 human vessels currently operating in your territory, Captain Jiwoo announced matter-of-factly. We've been conducting what you might call an extended reconnaissance mission. Admiral Kyung-ho stared at the tactical display in horror. His entire empire was compromised. Every secret base, every hidden facility, every classified research station. Humans had found them all and positioned ships nearby. This is impossible, he whispered. Our security, our patrols were very thorough, Jiwoo agreed. Your people did excellent work. Unfortunately, you were looking for the kind of ships you would build. Fast, efficient, designed for exploration. Then trade. You weren't looking for ships designed from the ground up to avoid detection. Engineer Minho's cheerful voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, all fleet units report ready status. Stealth systems operating normally, all crews healthy and ready for orders. The psychological impact was complete. 800 Vorthak ships faced one human vessel, but 46 more human battleships were scattered throughout their territory, each one capable of devastating critical infrastructure. Now, Captain Jiwoo said, her tone becoming more serious, let me explain why we're here. The galaxy has a choice to make. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle over the alien fleet. Option 1. Accept humanity as an equal member of the galactic community. Trade with us, negotiate with us, treat us with the same respect you show other spacefaring civilizations. We prefer this option. It's better for everyone. And option 2? Kyung-ho asked, though he dreaded the answer. Option 2. Continue treating Earth as a primitive backwater world while our fleets continue their observation missions. We'll keep watching, keep learning, keep positioning ourselves throughout your territory. Eventually, you'll discover just how many of your neighbors are having similar conversations with human captains right now. The implication hit like a thunderbolt. This wasn't just happening to the Vorthak Empire. Humans were simultaneously revealing themselves to every major power in the galaxy. 47 ships in your space, Jiwoo continued. Similar numbers in the Zelroth Federation, the Kefrian Alliance, the Mordian Republic. We've been very busy. These past few years, the ultimatum was clear, and the balance of power had shifted permanently. The age of dismissing humanity was over. 3 days later, the largest diplomatic vessel in the Vorthak Empire arrived at the coordinates where everything had changed. Emperor Thexul himself had come to meet with the humans, bringing his personal flagship and an escort of the Empire's most advanced ships. But as his massive vessel approached the Thunder, the Emperor couldn't shake the feeling that he was the smaller fish in this ocean. The human battleship's energy readings still dwarfed his own flagship, and the knowledge that 46 more human ships were scattered throughout his territory made every decision feel heavy with consequence. Your Majesty, Admiral Kyung-ho reported from the bridge, the human captain is requesting permission to come aboard for negotiations. Granted, Thexul replied, though the irony wasn't lost on him. A week ago he would have expected any visiting alien to request an audience with him. Now Captain Jiwoo was graciously asking permission rather than simply demanding it. When Jiwoo materialized in the Emperor's private conference room via transport beam, she looked remarkably ordinary. No exotic armor, no impressive weapons, just a human woman in a simple military uniform. But Thexul had learned not to judge humans by appearances. Your Majesty, Jiwoo said with a respectful bow, thank you for agreeing to meet. I know this situation has been challenging for your people. Challenging, Thexul repeated with dry humor. That's one way to describe discovering that your supposedly primitive neighbors have been watching your every move for years. Jiwoo smiled slightly. We prefer to think of it as being thorough. Humans learned long ago that information is the most valuable weapon in any conflict. The negotiations that followed would reshape the galaxy. Jiwoo presented terms that were surprisingly reasonable. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, mutual defense pacts. But underlying every discussion was the clear understanding that humanity was no longer asking for permission to be taken seriously. Our diplomatic corps will establish embassies in your major systems within the month, Jiwoo explained. In return, we're prepared to share some of our stealth technology and defensive systems. Not the advanced versions, of course, but enough to significantly improve your security. It was a masterful move. The humans were offering to help defend the very empire they had just proven they could infiltrate at will. And if we refuse? Thexul asked, though they both knew the answer. Then nothing changes, Jiwoo replied simply. Our ships continue their observation missions. Your secrets remain in our databases, and eventually you'll realize that cooperation is more beneficial than isolation. As the Thunder prepared to depart, Jiwoo received reports from across the galaxy. Similar meetings were taking place with every major civilization. The Zelroth Federation had already agreed to formal diplomatic relations. The Kefrian Alliance was requesting immediate trade negotiations. The Mordian Republic was actually begging. 4 human military advisors, Communications Officer Jamin Jiwoo said, as they watched the Vorthak capital world shrink on their main screen. Send a message to Earth Command. Phase 1 is complete. All target civilizations have been contacted. Successfully. Message sent, Captain, Jamin replied. Earth Command acknowledges and congratulates the fleet on a successful mission. As the Thunder engaged its stealth systems and vanished from Vorthak sensors one final time, the Emperor stood at his flagship's observation deck, staring at empty, a space where the human ship had been. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had announced its arrival not with violence or threats, but with a demonstration of capability so complete that resistance seemed pointless. They had rewritten the rules of galactic politics without firing a single shot in anger. And across the stars, other alien civilizations were learning the same lesson the Vorthak had just discovered. The age of dismissing humanity was over forever. The humans had arrived, and they were here to stay.